Hi everybody, welcome to Rémanence, the words that linger in your mind long after you've turned the page, a podcast about esoteric literature and spirituality, brought to you by Dreamco Station. I'm your host, Charlotte, and today I'm presenting episode 2 of the first season of the podcast, and it's all about esoteric literature. Who could have guessed? Not about a book or an article in particular, but just a general concept as I approach it in my mind. Why does it interest me so much? Why should you read some yourself or not? What even is the point of esoterism? That kind of stuff. It's going to take a while, so grab a drink, take a seat, and let's unpack. As I will be soliloquizing my way through this episode, I will also be building a very literal bookshelf to give everyone a sense, myself included, of my actual home library. It's quite modest at the moment, but still too much for my current working space. And while the floor is a generous landlord, I need to give those poor books actual real estate to live in. No comments on my building skills. We are going for the bare minimum here. Maybe some staining towards the end. And of course, filling up the shelves. But don't get your hopes up too much. I don't have a lot of books. While I'm at it, I am also building a Storygraph account, not sponsored, where you can find my virtual bookshelves as well, as I don't own all the books that I have read. I borrow a lot from friends, and I also have some ebooks for the titles that I can't buy or can't find in France. So, what is esoteric literature? What even is esoterism? If we are going with the general definitions from dictionaries, it's about a closed or a secret knowledge shared only among a small and specific group of people. I found on Britannica, for what it's worth, quote, esoterism, a category encompassing a diverse range of religious traditions that are typically included together because of their shared cultural marginality or their focus on imparting teachings to a select group. That's a lot, and I don't agree with much, especially the religious tradition part. Just in 5 seconds, I can think in my mind that, but witchcraft is part of esoterism, but witchcraft is not a religion. So, yeah, busted in 5 seconds. But in this very still controversial definition, I kind of find interesting the mentions of marginality and teachings to a select group. I think those two parts are key points of esoterism. Aside from a few words at the end, the rest of the definition, that I won't quote here, is very westernized, in my opinion. I don't really find it relevant, as my own definition embraces all kinds of cultures from the get-go, and I think that point is very important to me. The reason my definition is so large is that it also stands on the foundation of esoterism as a field relative to the individual, but we'll get to that later. So, if we got something closed, that means something is open in comparison, isn't it? So in that case, what could be considered open? There are many ways to define it, but for this episode, I will call the open culture the common ground culture, what is mundane, what is known, and kinda accessible by most people. Saying that, I am well aware of class disparity and inequality within our past and current societies, and I am also aware that some esoteric doors require keys made of money, network, education, or diverse and specific credentials. I know that elitism in our society is its own specific kind of flock, whether it's in esoterism or not. When I'm talking about common ground, it's about what is a common story, something that is not specific to a family, not specific to a lineage, not specific to a language maybe. To simplify it, it's kind of like the common laws relative to any specific culture that most people know and abide to, has to be integrated in this communal system, easy to access or to ask about if you don't know the rules. Close practices are the liminal realm where those common laws don't really apply anymore, I would say. You may still use money to buy a bit of your way in, like to buy a course or a book. You may still shop for ingredients at your everyday marts, like to buy herbs, what you buy, where you shop, what you display in your everyday life. It's not really the only indicative of the heart and meaning of your practice. What makes it closed is the true goal of the practice, the knowledge that you have to acquire. And above all, I believe, the specific, original, not mundane set of flows. Before going further, I wanted to say that I won't address those actual closed practices, like hoodoo or shamanism, for example, first, second, and last, just because they are closed by definition. I'm not an initiate of any of them, and even if I was, I would be under an oath of secrecy forbidding me to tell any profane individual about it. So I won't go there. Cultural respect, decolonization of Western practices, alongside revalorization of indigenous practices, are also very important topics that I won't cover here, but that I wanted to acknowledge a bit too. Some practices, and among them some of those closed practices, may also require specific gifts or lineage. I think this kind of practices just speaks for itself, and it's pretty easy to figure out if it's for you or not. There is no way around it. Either you have it or you don't. You can ask around if you want, or ask if you can get in. But at the end of the day, I think you don't get to decide what door should be open for you. Nor should you just reclaim yourself as from an order you just discovered in a Wikipedia article, just because it's cool and you feel like it. Again, basic respect and cultural self-awareness. So that's it for what I won't cover. But what I can, and I will, talk about is my not-so-special experience with the grey and ambiguous part of the not-so-closed anymore current fields of esoterism. From the kinds that you can get on your doorstep with free shipping, to that out-of-print grimoire that you found in a charity shop, and I would even include your own journals, full of your own trials and maybe successes. That's what I want to cover in the podcast, and what I want to talk about. What I mean by this is that nowadays, what could have had you burned at the stake 500 years ago, and only practiced off the record with the utmost secrecy, is now way more within the reach of most people feeling curious or interested about it. Again, I'm well aware that some parts of the current world are still violently against some esoteric practices. Some cultures, some neighborhoods, some communities, some families are still unwelcoming and unforgiving. I feel that even in Western and open communities or workplace, manifesting and showing a great interest in esotericism may not always be well perceived for many reasons, whether they are fair or not. So yeah, for the sake of this discussion, I will assume that the only thing preventing you to access this open esotericism is only your own ignorance of its very existence. And what does this open esotericism looks like? How do you recognize it? It's not really philosophy, it's not really science, it's not exactly religion nor spirituality, while it can contain some of all the above. So, going back to the previous definition, I feel that the marginal aspect is quite interesting, like why or how does something become or stay marginal or marginalized. If you take a look at the common exoteric system, you can see a complex system, but not necessarily the most clever or the more rational, nor the more equalitarian, nor the most kind, nor the most respectful. It's like a common space. One individual might feel the need to belong to this majoritarian group, to get access to the privileges that may come with it, or maybe even threatened or pressured to participate. Participation in this system, in the main system, may entail that you invest in it your time and resources, like going to work or driving with a license. But in a more subtle way, I feel that you also have to follow its laws. And I'm not talking about civil law, nor implying that esoteric practitioners are breaking the laws. It's not about this. I'm talking about subtle laws regarding what is normal, what is not, what is possible and what is not, what is logical, what is important, what is the order to follow, and maybe, if I had to pick only one, what is real and what is not. I feel that as social beings, the urge to live in the same reality as the people we depend on to survive is massively important, as the sense of belonging is now considered in psychology as a necessity, as a primary need that you need to fulfill. And trickling down from this statement, I would say that marginal practices arise when the desire for another reality and another set of laws becomes superior to the need to belong with the majority. Esoterism is not exactly a counterculture, because not all of it is an act of rebellion or disdain against the main system. There is another definition of counterculture that I won't go in too deep here. But esoterism practices maybe just not fit in the main system because of the nature of the individuals who can practice it, like with gifts or lineage, as that we mentioned above, but also because sometimes it requires hard and selective training, like in any other fields. Not everybody will be an astronaut or an engineer or a best-selling author. Maybe also that some groups are very happy with their small scale and never intended to let people in for their own sake, whether it's well-intended or not. So or maybe also some of those marginal esoteric practices, by the difference of the law they are using, are considered as a threat by the main system, which wants to remain the only available reality that people can live in. Beside all that, I think we also need to keep in consideration that since it's heavily related to culture, esoterism can be both relative to a system and also an individual. Every cultural system has its own definition of what is outside of its realm, and every individual, in the same way, has their own definition of what is real and what is possible for them, and what laws they choose to abide to. In any case, I think there is something about the laws and the reality introduced by esoteric content that is inherently different from the mundane, from the day-to-day reality, whether it's about how you perceive an interaction, an event, a sensation, how you act and react, all of that. Because all of this is dependent of the law of the reality you operate in. If you decide to integrate any esoteric system, it's like changing your filter on life, changing your point of view, while not losing sight of other common laws you also may live by and still be influenced by in some ways. In my opinion, it's not just one or another. It's more like esotericism opens you to another way of interacting with the world, and this new way can merge with your previous life, with your previous habits and way to interact. While it can also make you have a breakdown and reconsider what you have been doing with your life all this time. But that's another story, I think. As for my personal usage, I think in general, I am able to hold space for both the general and common definition of esotericism as a marginal set of practices and beliefs, if I need to address it in a mundane and impersonal context requiring my neutrality. But in my mind, as I also want to honor any individual truth, my definition would also be that esotericism is any set or any field that challenges the realm of possible of my personal context and my perception of what is reality by introducing me to other realities, other set of laws and paradigms, coming from a culture as well as an individual. And this one I apply for myself, but also at an individual level. Maybe it still feels vague in some ways, but I won't be defining the concept of reality in this episode, so please bear with me. So, in this definition, as a challenge of the realm of possibles. I feel that it's kind of easier to explain why I like it, why I'm interested in esoterism and esoteric literature, because I got a great interest for humankind in general and cultures, so I guess it's just part of this bigger interest, I suppose. But I'm also extremely interested in experiencing various paradigms within my own existence, and I really enjoy the challenging my own sense of reality part. I don't agree with all that I meet, and I don't feel the obligation to integrate everything either, but I really like to learn about anything that can expand my universe and my connection to the world and to other people. So I think that part of esoterism is very fun to me and very enjoyable. Those are my main personal reasons to pursue esoteric practices and learning, but I think there are way more than just those two. You don't need to approach it with a humanist perspective, nor with a mad scientist coat on, don't worry. It can also just be for yourself, to understand your experiences better, to understand someone you love, to learn the foundations of the lore of your favorite show, or just because you feel a curiosity and you want to know more. Maybe I'll just also clarify here that while I find creativity and curiosity helpful and good-looking, I also don't think that reading those kind of books makes you a better person or more enlightened. I don't think that about myself, nor anybody else. Well, you shouldn't be talked down to for having that kind of knowledge or interest, but you are not a superior being either. You're not special, you're not the chosen one. You know what I mean? You might feel that some knowledge can give you a length ahead, or that thinking outside the box makes you of a different wood. I understand the feeling, but I don't really condone it either. My belief is that there is nothing to gain when you just practice with the only goal in mind to prove yourself better than the common peoples that you like to belittle, because I also believe that everybody is just living their own life experience the best they can. Everybody just like what they like. Every person has its own talents, interests, skills. You're not really in a position to judge if someone else as a success or a failure, as those judgments are just in your own terms, and by that only apply to you. Find like-minded people if you want, work to polish your own craft, teach willing students even, but just don't push your beliefs onto someone else just because you think it's the best and only right way to live in the world. So yeah, I think I'll stop around here for my current definition of esoterism and what I find interesting about it. I think I covered most of it. So yeah, just a few words maybe on the literary genre. While I kinda like esoteric literature as an ensemble, as a whole, I think I can also agree on the idea that not every book ever written is well-intended or worth a read, or full of truth and only truth. Some people or companies may only be looking for profit and exploitation of a niche field of interest that may, in particular, require a suspension of disbelief, or a field that may attract people desperate for a miracle solution to their problems. So that is where I find important to apply critical thinking alongside with open-mindedness. Yeah, very crucial to check the sources, the bibliographies, the biography, the lore, the reputation, just as you would do for any other work to verify its authenticity. You can also call your intuition to help you evaluate if something resonates with you. If you feel that an author is maybe pushing a bit too much of their own beliefs and maybe trying to disguise them as facts, yeah, your intuition can help you detect if something feels right or wrong, and if it's good for you or if you should go further with this knowledge. Because this kind of literature can also be very challenging at times. And I think that's also a bit of its purpose. While I don't really think that any condition should prevent you from approaching this field, I think you can still proceed with caution if you're feeling triggered by some work or emotionally, physically, psychically unsafe to go further on your own. It's your own path. It can look any way you want. You can always come back to it later, or maybe also closing the door on something that you don't really feel safe with or aligned with. Because it's also the kind of field where you have to take the responsibility of maintaining your own health and your sense of self. Not that all the work you might encounter would be ill-intended or not genuine, but some concepts can be quite upsetting, or maybe challenging your ways of living or thinking. So be prepared for that too, and be ready to accommodate for yourself if you need to. Because a book is a book, and it can't really help you much. While on the topic of authenticity, I also wanted to give a quick warning about very cheap or free books that you can find nowadays on big online stores, as some of them seem to have been written using AI. Not all of them, of course. A physical book can also be exploitative and filled with nonsense. I agree. But with ebooks and subscription services, it can be quite hard to check the credentials of a book and of its writer. A quick way to spot them nowadays, both quacks and AI, would be, in my opinion, a fantastic author, very well versed in many different fields, always making introductions to a new field, bonus point if it's in fashion, no social media presence nor following, never heard of on any podcast, never reviewed outside of their book description on the online shop. I won't give names, as I can only have suspicions, but this would be my basic checklist if you have any doubts about the authenticity of a writer. On a personal level, I am pretty adverse to the use of AI in any creative field. As an artist, as I find that, in my opinion, it looks like fluff, and the quality of the work is nowhere near the talent and execution quality of actual artists and authors. To go back to the cheap or free books, those appear to me to only be money grabs, published by commercials, only to make a quick buck, bringing no originality nor innovative contribution to the field. As in the case of esoteric practices, they are based on traditions and also on personal experience. Those books would also be unverified, sometimes inaccurate, void of sources, and void of actual practice experience, since AI, as we know it, doesn't experience esoterism as we humans do. AI today doesn't bring anything to the shelf, in my opinion, and it only diverts attention and resources from actual authors and artists whose livelihood actually depends on people acknowledging the value of their research and practice and craftsmanship. To conclude this episode, I also wanted to mention the importance, for me at least, the importance to slow down and take some time in between reads to reflect, to integrate, to process, to review, to stop and observe myself and the world. Performative reading makes no sense to me, because all of this learning, I do it for myself, so it only makes sense that I take the time that I need to process this knowledge, to see how it fits in my life and in my heart, what can I do to try it out, maybe, and so on. I think you also need that kind of time to distance yourself from that work and look at it with a critical eye, with mindfulness maybe, and a calm heart. So, to wrap it up and answer my own question in a clear and quick way, I would say that I read esoteric literature because I'm curious about humankind and its endeavors, and I'm also interested as well in experimenting with my own life and self about different paradigms and ways to interact with the laws of this universe. I think that's my answer. I took some detours, but here we are. I hope it was interesting for you. I had a lot of fun myself, both in writing this episode and also in building my new bookshelf. So I am super curious about why are you reading esoteric literature? Or not, maybe. And if you do, what was your starting point? What do you like? What does your practice looks like? And also what you wouldn't touch with an iron stick. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening to this episode until the end. I hope you had a good time. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and share this episode. Any engagement is very helpful for the growth of the channel. Subscribe to stay in touch. I post here monthly episodes of this podcast, but also tarot readings, and soon to come, more content on esoterism and also my artistic practice as well. So, until next time, I'm wishing you a beautiful day and wonderful reads.